Alright, Yahsinni is in this motherfucking house. And this the only house that ain't fucked. Today I got a nice one for you. I went and dug up some Aleister Crowley Magic Without Tears because I knew you wouldn't. Yeah. And I'm gonna read to you part three, which is called Theorems. But before I do that, I'm gonna read the definition of magic. So, what is magic? What is magic? Why should anyone study and practice it? Very natural. The obvious preliminary questions of any subject soever. We must certainly get all this crystal clear. Fear not that I shall fail to set forth the whole business as concisely as possible, yet as fully, as cogently, yet as lucidly as may prove within my power to do. At least I need not waste any time on telling you what magic is not, or to go into the story of how the word came to be misapplied to conjuring tricks and to sham miracles such as are to this day foisted by the Carlton swindlers, either within or without the Roman communion, upon a gaping crew of pious imbeciles. First, let me go Euclidean and rub your nose in the definition, postulate, and theorems given in my comprehensive treatise on the subject, but alas, too far advanced and too chemical. So, one, here we go. Definition one: magic is the science and art of causing change to occur in conformity with will. Here's the illustration. It is my will to inform the world of certain facts within my knowledge. I therefore take magical weapons, pen, ink, paper. I write incantations, these sentences in the magical language, i.e., or for example, that which is understood by the people I wish to instruct. Yeah, I call forth spirits such as printers, publishers, booksellers, and so forth, and constrain them to convey my message to those people. The composition and distribution is thus an act of magic by which I cause changes to take place in conformity with my will. Two, postulate. Any required change may be affected by application of the proper kind and degree of force in the proper manner through the proper medium to the proper object. Illustration. I wish to prepare an ounce of chloride of gold. I must take the right kind of acid, which is nitrohydrochloric, and no other, in sufficient quantity and of adequate strength, and place it in a vessel which will not break, leak, or corrode in such a manner as will not produce undesirable results with the necessary quantity of gold and so forth. Every change has its own condition. In the present state of our knowledge and power, some changes are not possible in practice. We cannot cause eclipses, for instance, or transform lead into tin, or create men from mushrooms. But it is theoretically possible to cause in any object any change of which that object is capable by nature. Yeah. And the conditions are covered by the above postulate. And so Yahsinni is going to stop right there and then bring in the already recorded part three theorems. Yeah. Yeah. And this comes in part three. You see the theorems. Number one says Alistair. Every intentional act is a magical act. Let's see if I can get this so y'all can really see. Oh, get out of there. I'm tripping for real. I did smoke something, but 50. This is the best I can do. Part three theorems. One, every intentional act is a magical act. Two, every successful act has conformed to the postulate. Three, every failure proves that one or more requirements of the postulate have not been fulfilled. Okay. Illustrations. There may be failure to understand the case, as when a doctor makes a wrong diagnosis and his treatment injures his patient. There may be failure to apply the right kind of force, as when a rustic tries to blow out an electric light. There may be failure to apply the right degree of force, as when a wrestler has his hold broken. So there may be failure to apply the force in the right manner, as when one presents a check at the wrong window of the bank. There may be failure to employ the correct medium, as when Leonardo da Vinci found his masterpiece fade away. The force may be applied to an unsuitable object, as when one tries to crack a stone thinking it is a nut. Okay? Four, the first requisite for causing any changes is thorough qualitative and quantitative understanding of the condition. Here's an illustration. The most common cause of failure in life is ignorance of one's own true will or of the means by which to fulfill that will. Okay? So a man may fancy himself a painter and waste his life trying to become one. Or he may he he may be really a painter and yet fail to understand and to measure the difficulties peculiar to that career. Mhm. Number five, the second requisite of causing any change is the practical ability to set in right motion the necessary forces. Mhm. Illustration. A banker may have a perfect grasp of a given situation, yet lack the quality of decision or the assets necessary to take advantage of it. Number six, every man and every woman is a star. That is to say, every human being is intrinsically an independent individual with his own proper character and proper emotion. Number seven, every man and every woman has a course depending partly on the self and partly on the environment, which is natural or and necessary for each. So anyone who's forced from his own course, either through not understanding himself or through external opposition, comes into conflict with the order of the universe and suffers accordingly. Well, I promise you it did. Here's an illustration. A man may think it is his duty to act in a certain way through having made a fancy picture of himself instead of investigating his actual nature. For example, a woman may make herself miserable for life by thinking that she prefers love to social consideration, or vice versa. One woman may stay with an unsympathetic husband when she will really be happy in an addict with a lover, an addict. So while another may fool herself into a romantic elopement when her only true pleasures are those of presiding at fashionable functions. Again, a boy's instinct may tell him to go to sea, while his parents insist on him becoming a doctor. In such a case, he will be both unsuccessful and unhappy in medicine. A man whose conscious will is at odds with his true will is wasting his strength. He cannot hope to influence his environment efficiently. Here's an illustration. When civil war rages in a nation, it is in no condition to undertake the invasion of other countries. A man with cancer employs his nourishment alike to his own use and to that of the enemy, which is part of himself. He soon fails to resist the pressure of his environment. In practical life, a man who is doing what his conscience tells him to be wrong will do it very clumsily at first. Number nine, a man who is doing his true will has the inertia of the universe to assist him. For example, the first principle of success in evolution is that the individual should be true to his own nature and at the same time adapt himself to his environment. Number 10, nature is a continuous phenomenon. Thought we do not know in all cases. Uh, Maybe this should say something else, but you can see I'm reading what it says. Let's say, though we do not know in all cases how things are connected. Okay, see the little typo? So, number 10, okay, the illustration says human consciousness depends on the properties of protoplasm, the existence of which depends on innumerable physical conditions peculiar to this planet. And this planet is determined by the mechanical balance of the whole universe of matter. We may then say that our consciousness is casually connected with the remotest galaxies, yet we do not know even how it arises from or with the molecular changes in the brain. Number 11, science enables us to take advantage of the community of nature by the empirical application of certain principles whose interplay involves different orders of idea connected with each other in the way beyond our present comprehension. Now, uh, listen to that again or read it again because here is a number 11. I can see where 85% of us get fucked or can't go any further, can't even get rid of our cognitive dissonance and love our Stockholm syndrome. That's because we've no clue that the universe has its own set of rules that nobody's going to teach you. And I'm talking like this for certain people, and they know who they are because they don't understand shit that I say. So I have to use more emphasis on certain words. I have to take certain breathers and certain pauses at certain stops so you can comprehend. So I'm not doing this on purpose. Let me tell you something. Mm, mm, mm. I do not read for everyone. I do not talk to just anyone. You may never ever see me again on purpose, my purpose, because I have shit to do. And the people that I share with, my subscribers, know me. I engage with them, I talk to them, I comment all the time. Is there's a such thing of being friends with a person you've never met? Then that's me. I'm the epitome of that. And so when I do my readings and when I do my videos, my lives, whether I'm with Salima, Taz, Calico, it don't fucking matter. I'm coming from the same strength every fucking time because what I'm saying may not be relevant to you. And those are the ones that I don't want watching my channel. And I don't want to make this a don't watch me um, speech. But I'm for my subscribers who got distracted as I digressed, I'm going to read again number 11. Science enables us to take advantage of the continuity of nature by the empirical application of certain principles whose interplay involves different orders of idea connected with each other in the way beyond our present comprehension. And I'm gonna do the illustration and then I'm gonna show y'all the words again. So we're able to light cities by rule of thumb methods. We do not know what consciousness is or how it is connected with muscular action, what electricity is or how it is connected with the machines that generate it. And our methods depend on calculations involving mathematical ideas which have no correspondence in the universe as we know it. So don't bring your small mind into my world. Don't try to dialogue with me. Don't invite me any motherfucking place that you're going to be if you're one of those people that I'm trying to get to scat right now. Word. Number 12. Yeah. Man is ignorant of the nature of his own being and powers. Even his idea of the limitations is based on experience of the past, and every step in his progress extends his empire. There is, therefore, no reason to assign theoretical limits to what he may be or to what he may do. Here's an example. 2 generations ago, it was supposed theoretically impossible that man should ever know the chemical composition of the fixed stars. It is known that our senses are adapted to receive only an infinitesimal fraction, infinitesimal fraction of the possible rate of vibration. Modern instruments have enabled us to detect some of those suprasensibles by indirect method and even to use their peculiar qualities in the service of man. And in the case of the rays of Hertz and Rontgen. So, as Tidal said, men might at any moment learn to perceive and utilize vibrations of all conceivable and inconceivable kinds. The question of magic is a question of discovering and employing um, hitherto unknown forces in nature. We know that they exist, and we cannot doubt the possibility of mental or physical instruments capable of bringing us in relation with them. 13. Every man is more or less aware that his individuality comprises several orders of existence, even when he maintains that his subtler principles are merely symptomatic of the changes in his gross vehicle. So a similar order may be assumed to extend throughout nature. Here's an illustration. One does not confuse the pain of toothache with the decay which causes it. Inanimate objects are sensitive to certain physical forces, such as electrical and thermal conductivity, but neither in us nor in them, so as far as we know, is there any direct conscious perception of these forces. Imperceptible influences are therefore associated with all material phenomena. You hear? Imperceptible influences, right? And there's no reason why we should not work upon matter through those subtle energies as we do through their material basis. In fact, we use magnetic force to move iron and solar radiation to produce images. Yeah. 14. Man is capable of being and using anything which he perceives, for everything that he perceives is, in a certain sense, a part of his being. He may thus subjugate the whole universe of which he is conscious to his individual will. Here's an illustration. Man has used the idea of God to dictate his personal conduct, to obtain power over his fellows, to excuse his crimes, and for innumerable other purposes, including that of realizing himself as God. He has used the irrational and unreal conceptions of mathematics to help him in the construction of mechanical devices. He has used his moral force to influence the actions even of wild animals. He has employed poetic genius for political purposes. Okay, yeah. So number 15, and there's excerpts in there, you see them. Every force in the universe is capable of being transformed into any other kind of force by using suitable means. There is thus an inexhaustible supply of any particular kind of force that we may need. Here's an illustration. Heat may be transformed into light and power by using it to drive dynamos. The vibrations of the air may be used to kill men by so ordering them in speech as to inflame warlike passions. The hallucinations connected with the mysterious energies of sex result in the perpetuation of the species. Mhm. 16. The application of any given force affects all the orders of being which exist in the object to which it is applied. Whichever of those orders is directly affected. So let's go to the illustration. If I strike a man with a dagger, his consciousness, not his body only, is affected by my act, although the dagger, as such, has no direct relation therewith. Similarly, the power of my thought may so work on the mind of another person as to produce far reaching physical changes in him or in others through him. Yeah. So, number 17 says, a man may learn to use any force so as to serve any purpose by taking advantage of the above theorems that I just read and that Alista wrote. And so, therefore, a man may use a razor to make himself vigilant over his speech by using it to cut himself whenever he unguardedly utters a chosen word. He may serve the same purpose by resolving that every incident of his life shall remind him of a particular thing, making every impressionable, making every impression the starting point of a connected series of thoughts, and then in that thing. He might also devote his whole energies to some peculiar object by resolving to do nothing at variance therewith and to make every act turn to the advantage of that object. I know, I know. Stay with me. Number 18, he may attract himself to any force of the universe by making himself a fit receptacle for it, establishing a connection with it, and arranging conditions so that its nature compels it to flow toward him. Here's an example. If you want pure water to drink, I dig a well in a place where there is underground water. I prevent it from leaking away, and I arrange to take advantage of water's accordance with the laws of hydrostatics to fill it. Yeah. 19. Man's sense of himself as separate from and opposed to the universe is a bar to his conducting its currents. It insulates him. For example, a popular leader is most successful when he forgets himself and remembers only the cause. Self seeking engenders jealousies and schism. When the organs of the body assert their presence otherwise than by silent satisfaction, it is a sign that they are diseased. The single exception is the organ of reproduction. Yet, even in this case, self assertion bears witness to its dissatisfaction with itself, since it cannot fulfill its function until completed by the counterpart in another organism. Mhm. 20. Man can only attract and employ the forces for which he is really fitted. For example, you cannot make a silk purse out of a sow's ear. A true man of science learns from every phenomenon, but nature is dumb to the hypocrite, for in her there is nothing false. Think. Okay, trip me out on that one. But anyway, 21. There's no limit to the extent of the relations of any man with the universe in essence. For as soon as man makes himself one with any idea, The means of measurement cease to exist, but his power to utilize that force is limited by his mental power and capacity and by the circumstances of his human environment. So, when a man falls in love, the whole world becomes, to him, nothing but love, boundless and imminent. But his mystical state is not contagious. His fellow men are either amused or annoyed. He can only extend to others the effect which his love has had upon himself by means of his mental and physical qualities. So, thus, Catullus, Dante, and Swinburne made their love a mighty mover of mankind by virtue of their power to put their thoughts on the subject in the musical and eloquent language. So again, Cleopatra and other people in authority molded the fortunes of many other people by allowing love to influence their political actions. So the magician, however well he succeeds in making contact with the secret sources of energy in nature, can only use them to the extent permitted by his intellectual and moral qualities. Mohammed's intercourse with Gabriel was only effected because of his statesmanship, soldiership, and the sublimity of his command of Arabic. Hertz's discovery of the rays which we now use for wireless telegraph, tele, telegraphy was sterile until reflected through the minds and wills of the people who could take his truth and transmit it to the world of action by means of mechanical and economic instruments. 22. Every individual is essentially sufficient to himself, but he is unsatisfactory to himself until he has established himself in the right relation with the universe. Example, a microscope, however perfect, is useless in the hands of savages. A poet, however sublime, must impose himself upon his generation if he is to enjoy and even to understand himself, as theoretically should be the case. 23. Magic is the science of understanding oneself and one's conditions. It is the art of applying that understanding in action. So, a golf club is intended to move a special ball in a special way in special circumstances. A niblick should rarely be used on the tee or a brassy under the bank of a bunker. But also, the use of any club demands skill and expertise. Okay. 24. Every man has an indefeasible right to be what he is. Example, to insist that anyone else shall comply with one's own standards is to outrage not only him, but oneself, since both parties are equally born of necessity. Okay? 25. Every man must do magic each time that he acts or even thinks, since a thought is an internal act whose influence ultimately affects action, though it may not do it may not do so at the same time. And whoever wrote this book for Aleister Crowley, whoever his editor is, every single time he wants to say though, he spells it thought. Go figure. So number 25, every man must do magic each time that he acts or even thinks, since a thought is an internal act whose influence ultimately affects action, though it may not do the same all the time. For example, the least gesture causes a change in a man's own body and in the air around him. It disturbs the balance of the entire universe, and its effects continue eternally throughout all space. Every thought, however swiftly suppressed, has its effect on the mind. It stands as one of the causes of every subsequent thought and tends to influence every subsequent action. So a golfer may lose a few yards on his drive, a few more with his second and third. He may lie on the greens 6 bare inches too far from the hole, but the net result of these trifling mishaps is the difference of a whole stroke. And so, probably between having and losing the hole. Yeah. 26. Every man has the right of self preservation to fulfill himself to the utmost. Example: a function imperfectly performed injuries not only itself, but everything associated with it. Yeah. If the heart is afraid to beat for fear of disturbing the liver is starved for blood and avenges itself on the heart by upsetting digestion, which disorders respiration, on which cardiac welfare depends. This is simple. This is the person they told us to hate, Aleister Crowley, the devil himself. Don't read him. Look at what he's saying. It's all common sense and magic. So 27 says every man should make magic the keynote to his life. He should learn its laws and live by them. So the banker should discover the real meaning of his existence, the real motive which led him to choose that profession. He should understand banking as a necessary factor in the economic existence of mankind, instead of as merely a business whose objects are independent of the general welfare. He should learn to distinguish false values from real and to act not on accidental fluctuations but on considerations of essential importance. Such a banker will prove himself superior to others because he will not be an individual limited by transitory things, but a force of nature as impersonal, impartial, and eternal as gravitation. Okay, as patient and irresistible as the tides. His system will not be subject to panic any more than the law of inverse squares is disturbed by electrons. He will not be anxious about his affairs because they will not be his. And for that reason, he will be able to direct them with the calm, clear headed confidence of an onlooker with intelligence unclouded by self interest and power, unimpaired by passion. Yep. Some of y'all hear me, some of y'all don't. The ones who don't, number 28. Every man has a right to fulfill his own will without being afraid that it may interfere with that of others. For if he is in his proper path, it is the fault of others if they interfere with him. Huh. If a man like Napoleon were actually appointed by destiny to control Europe, he should not be blamed for exercising his rights. To oppose him would be an error. Anyone so doing would have made a mistake as to his own destiny, except insofar as it might be necessary for him to learn the lessons of defeat. So the sun moves in space without interference. The order of nature provides an orbit for each star. A clash proves that one or the other has strayed from his course. But as to each man that keeps true his course, the more firmly he acts, the less likely are others to get in his way. His example will help them to find their own paths and pursue them. Every man that becomes a magician helps others to do likewise. the more firmly and surely men move, and the more such action is accepted as the standard of morality, the less will conflict and confusion hamper humanity. And so he said, well, that ended the first lesson. That seems to me to cover the ground fairly well. At least that is what I have to say when serious analysis is on the agenda. But there is a restricted and conventional sense in which the word may be used without straying too far from the above philosophical position, one might say. Magic is the study and use of those forms of energy which are A, subtler than the ordinary physical mechanical types, B, accessible only to those who are, in one sense or another, initiates. Initiates. I fear that this may sound rather obscure per asking about aha, but this is one of those cases. We're likely to encounter many such in the course of our researches, in which we understand quite well enough for all practical purposes what we mean, but which elude us more and more successfully the more accurately we struggle to define their import. We may fare even worse if we try to clear things up by making lists of events in history, tradition, or experience and classifying this as being and that as not being true magic. So the borderland cases would confuse and mislead us. But since I have mentioned history, I think it might help if I went straight on to the latter part of your question and give you a brief sketch of magic, past, present, and future, as it is seen from the inside. What are the principles of the masters? What are they trying to do? What have they done in the past? What means do they employ? As it happens, I have by me a sketch written by M. Gerard Mont of Tennis 2 some 20 years ago, which covers this subject with reasonably adequacy. So I have been at the pains of translating it from French. I hope not. I hope not too much reminiscent of the old troubadour. I will advise it, divide it like all into three parts and send it along. Love is the law. Love under will. Fraternally 666. Mm-hmm. Yep, that's enough right there. That's enough for you to think about. That's enough. It's fairly short. I might chop it down to 30 minutes. But yeah, so there you have it. Aleister Crowley and what a book by Satan himself might read like. So all you scary mofos, but who live by his command that says, do what thou wilt, shall be the whole of the law. Not a part of the law. It is the law. Do what thou wilt. Ask Jay-Z. Okay? And others who have been successful in their craft of performing their own magic that they created by sticking to the postulates that Aleister Crowley just named off. The three things that you have to do. Go back and watch the video if you didn't get it. Not repeating anything. I'm gonna move ahead. Might just shoot some more of this shit at y'all because y'all don't understand. The people that they're keeping us away from are the people's books that we need to read. Yeah, there's gems everywhere, everywhere. And with that being read, and with that being said, Yahsinni is nowhere near going to bed.